Wondering why your homemade chicken Parmesan doesn't have the same sizzle as it would at a restaurant? We asked Chef Brandon Boudet of Little Dom's in Los Angeles and Chef Chris Curtis of the dining chain North Italia for their tips and tricks to help make your next family dinner truly pop. To prepare a chicken Parmesan in line with the iconic Italian eateries, you've got to start by pounding out the poultry, as Chef Curtis points to using his own kitchen as an example. We flatten and tenderize the chicken breasts so that when they are cooked, the chicken cooks evenly and it is very tender. How flat are we talking? The solution isn't to Hulk smash the pieces into a skimpy rag so your breadcrumbs won't cling to the chicken. If you do that, the meat will be bone dry when you end up frying your cutlets. Instead, simply hammer down the chicken with your instrument, like a pounding mallet or rolling pin, which will ensure your cutlets maintain a uniform thickness. Not all recipes for chicken parm call for proper tenderization, but if your goal is constructing a plate worthy of a Michelin star, you'll want to get punching. That'll allow your chicken breast to be perfectly cooked with a texture that no one will be able to resist.
Chicken isn't vegan?
When the time comes to prepare the breading for your chicken Parmesan, you don't have to bake an entire loaf yourself just to turn it into crumbs. It's totally acceptable to buy breadcrumbs pre-made at the supermarket, but steer clear of the varieties that come pre-seasoned. Breadcrumbs manufactured with the spices included are harder to adjust since you're stuck with whatever proportions are mixed into the container. The flavor may be stale or muted, robbing your coating of the vibrancy you get from freshly shaken herbs. That's why applying the seasoning with your own two hands will lend your chicken Parmesan a more authentic flair in tune with professional chefs. Chef Boudet advises home cooks, instead, use a classic plain breadcrumb and season it yourself so you can achieve a fresher, cleaner flavor. Boudet's personal go-to blend favors Italian-style herbs such as oregano and parsley, but he also likes to pair it with sharper notes found in grated Parmesan and lemon zest. Chef Curtis, on the other hand, is a fan of panko breadcrumbs for his coating. He cuts it with a 3-to-1 ratio of shredded Parmigiano Reggiano dashed with thyme and dried oregano. Cheese is the glue behind every chicken Parmesan on the planet. It's basically non-negotiable. Stretching across the cutlet in a gooey, lightly toasted blanket, mozzarella is the variety that comes most suggested in cookbooks and online recipes. Surprisingly, the pros seem much less concerned with tradition, as our sources professed to utilizing interesting blends in their renditions of the dish. To grate a mix of cheeses draws out varying degrees of sharpness, saltiness, and textural flair, giving even the simplest recipes a boost of complexity. Under Chef Boudet's watch at Little Dom's, hard Italian cheeses mingle with softer counterparts. His preferred mixture? We use a mixture of aged provolone, fresh mozzarella, and Grana Padano or Parmigiano Reggiano. Alternately, Chef Curtis enjoys rotating between provolone, mozzarella, and fontina. There's no problem with sticking to the default, but at upscale dining rooms, experimentation with various combos happens more frequently than you might think. You might find that specialty shops or even the import section of your supermarket's cheese counter holds the answer for a transcendent chicken parm. Tomato sauce is delicious, and a good chicken Parmesan knows how to put it to use. You don't want to add too much since the chicken's coating is meant to stay intact. Glopping it on causes it to soak into the crust, which in turn makes the crunchy exterior mealy and mushy. As a result, you won't find many experts admitting to heavily drenching their cutlets. Restraint is key amongst elite professionals, Chef Curtis instructs. Only top the chicken with a small layer of hot marinara, then top with the cheese. That advice certainly defies the comically sloppy plates you'll find at some locations.
Let me play this record while I go to work on my chicken Parmigiano hero with extra cheese and extra sauce.
Practically speaking, hand breading and frying pieces of chicken takes a lot of labor. All that effort could be washed away by pouring on the marinara, as tasty as it might be. From a pro's perspective, lightly spreading the sauce brings out the satisfying mouthfeel without sacrificing your efforts. This approach is one that Chef Boudet abides by as well. His technique aims to make the sauce a complementary element to the chicken. As he put it, we add a small amount of sauce to the bottom of the plate and then cover about a third or half of the chicken with sauce so that it's not drowning. A light saucing hand not only imbues elegance to your plate, it also mixes up the textural sensations you receive in every morsel. About that sauce, there's an ingredient you might be sleeping on that world-class dining establishments embrace when firing up the stove: cheese. Preparing the menu item at Little Dom's involves spiking the sauce with leftover shreds. According to Chef Boudet, it's a useful trick that levels up its consistency and character. In his words, We add and whisk in some of the cheese that's used on top of the chicken to the sauce mixture, which adds a little richness to it. You don't have to add a lot, just enough to add some fat and body to the sauce. From a practical standpoint, stirring cheese into the sauce is a great flavor-enhancing tactic. You'll find that the same sharp, salty notes of the cheese topping swirl throughout the marinara, infusing every bite. Due to the presence of fats mingling together with the starchy breadcrumbs, the cheese takes on the role as a thickening agent, further emulsifying the mixture. Marinara sauce is just one element of chicken parm, but it's an important one. It's clear that cheese, or most dairy really, is the key to amplifying the flavor. When it comes to chicken parmesan, the right oil for the job will lend good texture and a golden hue to your main course. You can count on many Italian joints to sizzle olive oil, thanks to its decent smoke point for frying and general versatility. As Chef Boudet says, I'd recommend using a neutral olive oil like Palmer's. You don't want anything flavored. Alternative oils like avocado oil aren't the best for sautéing. Likewise, New York restaurateur Mario Carbone is also a proponent of this variety, but he believes in opting for a premium bottle to elevate the quality. As he explains in a video created for his dining concept Carbone Fine Food, I try not to skimp on the olive oil even when cooking. I still use a pretty nice product. I do believe it affects the flavor of it all, so moral of the story, don't be cheap with the grease. Sautéing some chicken breast for yourself at home won't command the same amount of grease as a full-sized dining operation. Granted that while Chef Curtis manages almost 40 dining spaces under the North Italia banner, his advice for home cooks is tailored with these circumstances in mind. He says, if you are cooking just a few pieces of chicken parmesan, I would recommend using extra virgin olive oil.
And I went to the market and the recipe calls for extra virgin olive oil, and they only had virgin, and how the hell do I know the difference since they don't even cook?
Even when it has a perfectly golden browned coating, chicken parmesan isn't that similar to the type of fried chicken you might find at KFC or Popeyes. Nevertheless, the process of readying your fillets for frying may benefit from a process reserved for southern poultry, which might surprise fans of the Italian comfort food, using buttermilk. Buttermilk brining can increase the tenderness of your chicken. Thanks to the live cultures and acids the dairy byproduct produces, your meat will foster a juicy, succulent profile. Those rich fats in the buttermilk also help breadcrumbs stick, which is absolutely necessary for any piece of chicken seared in oil. Understandably, amateurs may be intimidated by this step, but if you have leftover buttermilk in your fridge anyway, the choice to marinade comes recommended, given that it ensures that the chicken's moisture is locked in. As a bonus, it results in an intensified flavor thanks to the buttermilk's sour disposition. Chef Boudet is one person who swears by this tip. His restaurant has integrated buttermilk into their chicken parm as a matter of routine. If you're expecting that the meat would have to sit for a whole day, Boudet claims that it's a much more manageable wait time. He revealed, "We let the chicken breast brine for about 1 to 2 hours before we bread and fry it." In any upscale setting, highly trained chefs can be expected to adhere to numerous procedures. Professionals can clearly afford some discretion when it comes to cheese or seasonings. Other aspects of the classic chicken parm recipe aren't equally flexible. For breading the chicken, it's necessary to master the 3-step plan. Chef Curtis provides an outline of the typical format, ingredients and utensils included for coating your meat. As he describes, you will need 3 separate bowls to bread the chicken. First, you will need an egg wash, which is whole eggs whisked together with a splash of milk. Second, all-purpose flour seasoned with a few pinches of salt and a little fresh ground black pepper. Third, the seasoned panko mixture. All of this is assuming you plan to grace your table immediately with cooked-to-perfection parm. But in the case of crossing off this step early and, say, storing the cutlets in the fridge before heating up the pan later, Chef Boudet offers a solid pointer to help those crumbs stay crispy. He advises, if you bread your chicken ahead of time, I recommend adding some extra breadcrumbs on top right before pan frying it. Frying is likely the step amateur cooks get the most stressed about, and with good reason. You want moist chicken with an oh-so-crunchy breadcrumb coating, but the paranoia of undercooking it could lead one to accidentally dry it out instead. The only way to work around this, professionals say, is cooking the chicken very quickly. Because the meat has been flattened prior to hitting the stove, less time will be needed overall in searing it all the way through. Simply keep the pace fast by frying the meat until the surface is caramelized and fairly golden. On his show The F Word, Gordon Ramsay emphasizes that chicken parm should fry in a pinch, which he demonstrates by keeping it in the pan for just 5 minutes.
2.5 minutes each side, you turn it once only.
Related to this step, another rookie mistake you'll find the best chefs avoid is low oil temperature. A tepid cooking oil won't brown chicken as efficiently, which leads to grease seeping into the piece of poultry. Using a meat thermometer eliminates this guessing game completely. Not only can you use it as a traditional gauge for the chicken's internal temperature, but you can also check that the oil is ready to go for the main task. A lightning-fast speed and proper tools will produce a fantastic cutlet each time. Assembling your made-from-scratch chicken parmesan, that is, slapping on the sauce and cheese, requires a final blitz in the oven to warm over the toppings. That said, if kitchen novices want to take a cue from restaurateurs, they might consider going all out by finishing it under the broiler. Turning on this oven setting is a home run for a bubbly hot cheese pull, which is due to the direct source of heat focusing on just the surface rather than the whole of the chicken. Chef Curtis has found that this technique gives the fried cutlet a nice char, saying, "I would recommend broiling the chicken topped with sauce and cheese until the cheese is a light golden brown." Admittedly, not all Italian eateries will opt for preparing it this way. Chef Boudet shuns broiling, preferring to oven bake his chicken until it is ready to serve. As he asserts, "We bake instead of broiling. This helps avoid burning and helps the chicken bake on all sides instead of just burning the cheese on top, which ultimately helps achieve crispiness." Torching the mozzarella may be a risk with broiling, but from another perspective, the fast timing also reduces overexposing your cutlet to the heat. Remember, your chicken is already cooked. Melting everything down into oozy decadence is what you'll be striving for.